What is good, people? We're back. Can you believe it? Now, I wanted to take a break from our regularly scheduled program of just chugging along through John because I've had a thought in my brain. I know some of you out there are like, first time? I didn't know that thing worked. It does. It's more of a question that's just been sitting in my head for like a week now. I was like, huh, this is a really like interesting question to really sit down and think about and really discuss. And the question was, if you knew how something would end before it even happened, like before you started it, would you ever have done it at all? Things like relationships is a very easy like go to. Okay, if I knew that this was going to end this way, would I ever have even tried to go after that person in the first place? I feel like for people who are a little bit older, jobs would probably be a good context. Like if I knew I was, going to get fired, like if I knew this is how this was all going to play out, would I have ever even taken that job? But it can be applied to literally any context. Like if I knew that that car was going to blow up 6 months after I bought it, would I have ever even bought it? That was a pretty obvious, probably not, you know? But I think this question is really important to think about because so often when people go through situations that end, unfortunately, question that pops into my head is the lesson worth the pain? Is what you learned from this situation worth the pain and suffering it caused you to go through it? And there are some situations, like I said, with the car example, where it's a very clear and obvious no, it's not. You buy a car and it blows up on you 6 months later. There's like no amount of lessons that could have been learned from that weren't like, duh. Like you would there's nothing that could ever make you look at that decision to buy that car with anything other than pure regret. But when it comes to things specifically, for me, I do think of two very obvious examples of a job I had and a relationship I was in. Those are the two things that like really jumped out to me when this question first like popped in my head. And it was really, really interesting to think about. Let's start with the less recent one. Let's start with the job. So, as all of those of you who know me personally, and if you've seen the hat, you've seen that I currently work at a place called Pizza Ranch. For those of you who don't know what Pizza Ranch is, it is a buffet style restaurant. They serve pizza and chicken, and yeah, that's where I'm at now. But that was not job number one. That was actually job number three for me. It was a kind of interesting and weird timeline with a little bit of overlap between two of them. I'm going to first start by talking about the second job I ever had because I'll come back to job number one after we get through that and you'll understand, like, it'll make more sense. The second job I ever had was working at a place called Texas Roadhouse. Hopefully, all of y'all out there know what Texas Roadhouse is. What Texas Roadhouse is. It's a very popular restaurant. I'm not going to share like the locations of where I worked at, like where specifically exactly I worked at, because those are two large companies. And who knows? Maybe one day I'll be like really, really big and famous, and I don't want to say something that could get me into trouble. But anyways, back to my point. So, second job ever was working at Texas Roadhouse as like a busser, went around, cleaned off tables, that sort of deal. And it was not a fun experience. Not a fun experience. I did not have a good time working there. So, for a little bit of background, my brother started working there before I did. And I didn't really like get much of a choice when it came to whether or not I was going to work there. I had said over and over again that I didn't really want to. And then he kind of just like was like, here, just sit down, apply. You're going to work here and blah, 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 blah. So, anyways, that's how I ended up there. I ended up working there for about like a year and a half or something like that before it all kind of blew up, if you will. And it was a brutal experience. Did not have a good time. Now you might be saying, really? Like you're like that whiny and that much of a little baby boy that bussing tables, that was really that difficult for you? that like it was this horrible experience and it was like the worst time of your life. That was not the difficult part. I didn't mind that at all. I actually still do that at now Pizza Ranch to this day, and I don't mind it at all. Is it like my favorite thing in the world to do? Is it what gets me out of bed in the morning? I'm like jumping up for joy to get a chance to go grab some plates off people's tables? Not exactly, but it's also not like I would rather die than clean up some tables, you know? Just like it's just a thing that I do. So like I said, that was not the hard part. That was not the part that I had an issue with. The part that I had an issue with was dealing with people. Now, in order to give full context to the story, we're gonna have to backtrack a little bit. So, like I said, my brother had started working there before me, and there were a couple people who worked there, members of the management team, who were not exactly big fans of my brother. Not really in a position where they could do anything about it because the general manager, like the big boss of the store, was a fan of like really likes my brother, but definitely did not like him all that much. And I feel like that kind of got reflected onto me when I started working there. So all I'm going to say is I did not start the fire. I didn't cause the problem. You're about to learn that I did. I poured gasoline on it, not water. But I will say I didn't start the fire. I just kept it burning. So anyways, I show up there instantly. There are like a few people just because of my association with my brother, do not like me. Just instantly out. Day one. I ain't even said or done nothing at this point. So me being who I am at that point in my life, fortunately, I've grown a little bit, not a whole lot, a little bit. My reaction to the disrespect and to the like hatred that was thrown my way was to respond with disrespect and hatred. Now, for anyone who has ever, I don't know, spoken to someone before in their entire life, you know that if you respond to hatred with hatred, it just builds. Like you're not making any progress. You're not breaking down bars that way. You're not making the situation any better. But alas, I was 16 years old. I'm saying that as if me now being 18, I'm much older and whatnot. I was immature and for reasons unrelated to work, already kind of like an upset and angry guy. So this just didn't help. And this was just part of my life for a year and a half of just getting beat down and just worn out until eventually it got to the point to where I went from subtly rude, subtly disrespectful to just openly, blatantly insubordinate. And I actually got away with it for like a couple months before they were finally like, all right, we're done. You're not like that, bro. We're not dealing with this. Once again, like I said, not the proper way to handle the situation. I did not start the fire. I made it significantly bigger, but it is what it is. I say all that to say it was a really brutal experience for me that like beat me down and really showed me like what I can and cannot stand in terms of a working environment. I have never been a person who has handled being disrespected well. And in an environment where that was happening constantly, it tested me a lot in a lot of ways. So that's one of those situations where I was sitting there and I was thinking about this question like, am I better off for it? Are the lessons I learned worth the pain I endured? And that answer used to be just overwhelmingly yes. Like what I gained was definitely worth what I went through. But now it's like, probably. That's where I'm at with it. Probably. And you'll understand why I said it used to be like a definite yes in a minute. It was a hard like probably, you know? And it was a lot of fun. I will say there were some moments where it was like genuinely I was having a great time. I'm not going to sit here and act like every single second of every single day that I spent at that place was awful. Like I still had a fair amount of fun and like still had some good experiences there. I got a couple of my friends to work there. Like we had some good times. So it's just in terms of thinking about it purely from the perspective of what I learned versus what I had to go through to learn it, I would say it's barely worth it. Like barely worth it. It had an extreme deteriorative effect on my life for a year and a half, almost 2 years. Like beat everything I had out of me. And it sucked. Like it really did for a while there. It caused issues at home and in school that I never truly, like, fully recovered from. And yeah, it was one of those situations where it was awful. I would definitely never go back under any circumstance, and anytime I hear about someone who wants to go work there, I give them a little cautionary tale, if you will. But I would say it's barely worth it because now I know very easily and very quickly, like, how to spot the warning signs of, like, okay, this is a work environment I would not survive in. Like, bosses who are openly and blatantly disrespectful to staff, I can't. Some people, like, can just justify it with the paycheck and just move on with their life. I can't do it. Like, grown adults acting like children, I can't handle it. I can't do it. It's an environment I can't be in. Being in a situation where everything I do is, like, viewed under a microscope, I can't handle that either. Being in a work environment where there's just no freedom, no trust, like, everything, there's just someone on top of me, like, micromanaging and criticizing every breath I take, can't handle that. So these are great, valuable, like, important lessons that I learned. It did just kinda almost destroy my life for a good while. Now, since we're on the topic of jobs, let's talk about job number 1, the first job I ever had, which was interesting. When I was 15, I started working as, like, just a general laborer, like, help guy for a construction company. And that was interesting. It was really interesting. I technically, I guess, worked as a part of that company off and on for like 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And it was very weird. It's one of those situations where you have a young guy who you're supposed to teach because like I said, I was like 15 years old. Like, I didn't know anything. But then you're being taught by a bunch of guys who are like, man, I do not get paid enough and I don't have enough time in my day to sit here and, like, teach this kid what to do. And then, so they didn't really want to, like, teach me in the first place. It's just one of those situations where another situation where I was kind of dealt a bad hand and I didn't play it well. It's the best way to put it. I'm very grateful to my former boss from that company. Like, he's a great guy. I've known him since I was like 7 years old, 6 years old or something like that. Like, I'm very grateful for the opportunity he gave me. I, got to make a good amount of money because of that. And like I said, learn some things. It was really, like, perfectly fine at the start when I was like 15, 16 years old because they're like, this is a kid. Like, if he screws up, it is, but, like, this is a kid. This is Stan. He's just gonna mess things up, and who cares? Then I decided that I was gonna do it, like, more actively and, like, really try to pursue that as a career after I graduated high school. And then they were like, all right, bro, like, you gotta figure things out. Like, I cannot be sitting here and holding your hand all the time, like, babying you through everything. And I was just like, it became very clear to me very quickly that, like, this is just not going to work for me. I'm not good at this. I'm not getting better, and it's becoming a problem. So that's one of those situations where I think is 100% worth it. And if I, like, had the option to, like, go back and restart and, like, go back from the age of 15 and, like, restart, I would do that again. 100%. Because it wasn't bad or anything. It's not like it was really beating down on me like the Texas Roadhouse situation was. It wasn't really, like, degrading my life. It was just a very clear cut, very, like, simple example of, you thought you were gonna end up doing this for the rest of your life and you thought wrong. Like, this is not for you. Which I know some of you are out there like, really? Are you that, like, stupid, like, that dumb in the head that something like construction you couldn't figure it out? First of all, there's a little bit more nuance to it than that. It's not just a bunch of meatheads hammering things and just, like, taking a drill and screwing things in. There is actually some skill and thought and stuff that goes into it, which I didn't know before I got into it. I was just a dumb meathead who was like, let's just go hammer things. And it also became very clear to me in that situation that that is not what the Lord had in mind for me. Is not at all. So it feeling like every time I took a step forward, I took 2 steps back, like, starts like, really now makes sense. Like, it felt that way, and I felt like I didn't belong, and I felt like I was wasting my time, and that I was just really not in the right space doing the right thing because I wasn't. Because God had other plans in mind for me, and he just had to really quickly show me, like, "Fine, you wanna avoid what I'm telling you? You wanna dodge, my plans for you? You wanna not listen to me? Okay, fine, go do your thing. Let's see how that works for you." So it very quickly, like, that was the moment where everything just broke down for me, and I was like, "You know what? I give up. I'm done fighting against God because it just doesn't work. This is not a battle I'm gonna win, and I give up. You know what, God? What do you want from me? What do you want me to do? Because clearly what I had in mind ain't it." So I literally, I don't want to say I literally like threw my hands up and was like, "Here, Jesus, take the wheel." But it was kind of like that. I was like, "I'm done. I can't, I'm not winning this battle. I'm actually losing horribly. Like, I'm down by 30 right now. Coach, put me on the bench. I'm 2 for 14, and, I like, this is not my game. Clearly, this is not what's supposed to be going on in my life. So, you know what? Let's go take some time. Let's go talk with God and let's figure that out." And that's actually how I ended up here doing this, talking to you all out there. And it was in those moments, I actually remember the breaking point. I remember it. I was, like, just so beaten down, and I was like, I just clearly, like, this is not it. Like, I can tell that this isn't it, but I have no idea what it is. So I remember just laying in my bed, just, like, praying, just calling out to God, like, "All right, Lord, my way ain't the right way. So I'm point me in the right direction. Just point me where you want me to go." At which point, the Holy Spirit guided me to open my Bible and start reading. I started reading Matthew chapter 1. I read Matthew chapters 1 through 5 just all that night, just in like a panic, sort of getting myself to really like recenter and refocus. And then all of a sudden, all these like thoughts and all these things started popping in my head. And I remembered earlier back in November, like this took place in like February, March. No, this was February. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was February. Hold on. I swear I'm going to remember the date. February, I think 20 like second or something. Yeah, something like that. It was like a random Wednesday or Tuesday. No, it wasn't Wednesday. I'd be wrong. Hold on. Let's pull up a calendar. Let's go back to, it was Wednesday, February 18th. My first thought was 18th, but I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. My memory is sometimes the memory of an elephant, or sometimes what, you know, I could have dementia. I could have, a photographic memory. It just depends on the day, really. Anyways, yeah. So it was Wednesday, February 18th. I started like having all these thoughts, and I remembered back in November when I had gotten the incredible opportunity to stand up in front of my youth group on stage and give a sermon, which was awesome. Something I hope to do again. It was like truly, I had never felt more joy in my entire life. And I remember just having this moment where I was like, okay, I get it. All right, if that's what you want me to do, that's what you want me to do. However, clearly it took me to like May to actually get around to sitting down and talking about it and really following through on it, because I am really great at listening and doing what I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it, as you all can clearly tell. So yeah, that job, 100%, 100% without a doubt in my mind, would do it again, because I literally am where I am. I think the only reason I say barely maybe on Texas Roadhouse is because I think I could have gotten there. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I could have gotten there and like figured things out without going through all of that. I'm not like, this is not me sitting here questioning God's plan for my life. 100% the Lord has a plan, and it led to another thing that we're going to talk about in a minute. So, but I don't know. Like, I still actually like really don't like want to go to that place. Like anytime my family would be like, "Let's go to Texas Roadhouse," I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I would rather not." So you see, that's the level of like like, it legitimately messed me up for a good while, and still to this day a little bit. So, I think I could have gotten there and learned that, but then again, was that the best environment? Was that the best time? It's like, I don't know. Clearly, God put me there for a reason, and clearly I came out with lessons learned and things on my mind. So if I had to do it again, I would, but I would not have stayed for as long. I would not have stayed until it completely broke me and took everything out of me. And then I legitimately just like literally like was like begging to get fired for months before they finally like pulled the trigger. I was, like I said, blatantly disrespectful and insubordinate because I was just at a point to where I was like, I cannot I can't listen to you anymore. It's taken everything I have. My emotionally and mentally, I'm so beaten and just drained by it that I just can't do it. I don't have it in me to do it anymore. So I would have probably quit. Like I got fired in May. Say fired. I was let go. I was informed that I was no longer going to be scheduled. I probably would have quit like around like December of that year, like right, probably like late, like mid May, like right before like the holidays, like right before like Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that. So that's the only alteration. I'm not going to sit here and say I flat out wouldn't do it again, but I definitely would not be there for as long because I think I learned my lesson and I learned everything I needed to learn. And I was just putting myself through suffering that was endless and pointless until finally, by the mercy and grace of God, it was all just broken down. But now let's talk about it. This is going to be a little weird and awkward because there's a chance that she's going to see this. Let's go for it, people. So the one thing now, once again, I'm not entirely sure that this happened purely because we both worked at Texas Roadhouse because we had known each other, prior to that and outside of that. But as sort of a byproduct of me working at Texas Roadhouse, I, you know, got a girlfriend out of it for almost like a year and a half, 2 years. Hold on, now I got to do math. I've never been good at math. I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in that ballpark. Somewhere in that ballpark is how long we were together. Anyways, I don't even know. That probably would have ended up happening eventually because we did like still do go to the same church and like we were in youth group together all the time and whatnot. I think that just kind of sped up the process because we went from like seeing each other and being around each other like in passing once or twice a week to like being right next to each other like 4 or 5 days a week. So it made it a little bit different. And I will say, yeah, that this is one of those really, really weird ones where I got so much out of it and I truly learned so much. I feel like I really grew and developed so much as a person during the process and because of that relationship that like it's really hard for me to sit here and say that like if I was given the opportunity to go back and knowing how it ends, how it all ended, choose whether or not to do it again, like it's really hard like for me to say no, but it also like really like it messed me up. Really, I'm gonna sit here. You know what? If you're one of those people, you're not a big fan of emotional vulnerability and openness. Me too. But we're testing boundaries today, and I'm gonna do it anyways. It like really broke me down. Like really, I will say that over the span of my entire life, I would say that I have been broken to the point to where like all I have left, the only thing I have to really like bet my life on and really like count on and look to and turn toward is God. I would say I've been broken to that point twice now. And every single time it is brutal. And for anyone out there who's had it happen to them, like it's just brutal. It's like you're sitting there and you're like, why? It's legitimately like it's like, why am I even here? What is this? what is life even for at this point? I remember saying all that. I was never actually suicidal, and I would never do something like that or go that far over a relationship because that is ridiculous. It's illogical and it's against, it's just a disgusting, violation of what, God intends for us. So I was never going to compromise that far. Never. But I have been a man in my life who's been known to socially isolate, and permanent social isolation was definitely on the table. Like for a good week, good like week to almost 2 weeks afterwards. Like it was definitely on the table of just at the drop of a hat, just grab whatever I felt I needed, just hop in my truck and just leave and just never speak to another human being ever again. Which is, I mean, essentially the same thing, honestly, as just fully going through with it. The only difference is I'm just technically physically still here on Earth. I have no idea how I would have pulled that off. I didn't exactly have anywhere to go. I didn't really have like any way to make it happen, but that was just like that was desire in my heart at that moment. Cause at that moment, like I felt like that was it. Like that was the last straw. I will say that if I had to sit down and think about every single person in my life who's like really important to me, I would say that for almost every single one of them, there is a specific moment where they turned their back and gave up on me. And that's rough. Like that's really, really hard to deal with. And then I thought foolishly, clearly, that I had finally like found the one person to where like, okay, I don't have to worry about this. It doesn't matter about anything else because I don't have to worry about this. And then God was like, you think? Yeah. I mean, you can think that. So that's what it felt like in the moment. It was like the final backstab. It was the truly the breaking point, the the last straw, the only hope I had just gone. And what really like made it worse is that it was very sort of unexpected. Like I remember I called my friend immediately after. He's like, "Dude, are you joking? Are you messing with me right now? Like, is this like a funny bit like you and her are doing to see like how I would react?" And I was like, "No, dude, I'm being 100% serious." He's like, "Well, didn't see that one coming, but all right." I get caught, me and everyone that I've talked to at least, very off guard. So that kind of amplified it of like it wasn't like it's not like one of those things where it just slowly broke apart until eventually one day it was just like we're like, well, we're mostly broken up anyways. Let's just quit pretending and just be done with it. It was like you went from like 100. They talk about you go from 0 to 100 and went from like 100 to 0, like just slammed on the brakes. And I was like, so that kind of added to like the devastating impact of it. But is like, it's been a fair amount of time since then. And as I sit back and think on it now, I kind of realized that it was like inevitable. I remember in the few days afterwards, there was like a few key actions, like a few key things that I said or that I did that I was like, maybe if I hadn't said that, maybe if I hadn't done that, maybe if I had done this. But as I'm sitting back here now looking at, I'm like, it was just inevitable. There was just no way to to avoid it. And I feel like this is a very common experience for people my age. Weirdly enough, all of the other couples that are like my age, they're all still doing great and perfectly fine. So that was another like slap in the face as well. It's like, really, I'm the only one that like couldn't figure it out. Great. That's nice. That doesn't make me feel horrible at all. That doesn't just toss a giant insult on top of the injury at all. But anyways, I mean, I've talked about it before. The age of 18, like this is a real crossroads in life. Like there's a lot of extreme changes that happen in that point, and those changes, like for the two of us, would have just led it to get to the point to where like the long distance relationships they talk about, where of like people in college, like one person's going to college in like Arizona and one person's going to college in like friggin' Minnesota or something like that. And they're technically in a relationship, but they barely get to talk to each other. They never see each other. Like they're on paper in a relationship, but just not really at all. That's kind of how it would have played out between the two of us. Because she's going off to college and she's an athlete and gonna have a bunch of that and like a job as well, so she can pay for the school and whatnot. I now have a full-time job and I'm gonna be doing some school stuff as well. And I got these to do too. So it's just it would have been one of those situations where it's like technically together, but not actually. So I remember she brought up the point of like, this is just like, that's not fair to you or to me, especially because of like how long we had been together. It's like I would love to be around you and to be like to continue this as it was for the past like year and a half, 2 years, but it's just completely impossible. And to just go, like I said, from 100 to zero, but in like that context, it's just gonna be it would just be such a weird like thing to try to figure out and navigate that it's like, is it even possible? The answer, no. Like it was never going to. So, like I said, the initial answer, like if I had tried to do this like a month ago, the answer would have been absolutely not. I should have never even done it in the first place. Yada, yada, yada. It's all like terrible, painful, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, I did gain a whole lot. Like I learned a whole lot. My viewpoint on like what a relationship is and how it's supposed to work was so radically changed over the course of the time span that her and I were together that I don't even like remember what my thoughts coming in were. I'm sure it was probably some like stereotypical like 17-year-old boy stuff of like, I'm just going to be like the man all the time, doing all the things, like the most important, just like I'm like big, strong dude ruling the whole thing the whole time. Not how it played out at all. There was a joke that very quickly emerged of like I was just like I just did what I was told. Like, I used to say, like, "I'm just following orders. Like, I'm just here. I'm just following orders." Which she always used to hate. She'd be like, "You don't like you're not following orders. Like, what do you want?" So that was always like that's really funny to sit back and think about of like how I thought what I was thinking versus what actually happened, which is an incredible thing to learn. Like, listen, I used to think it was really corny and cringy and like really stupid whenever I would see people say online, like relationship skills. I was like, really? Like, tell me you just suck at being with people without telling me, you know? I was like, you need to come up with a term and like really think about like, you just, but I was like, man, like there's really like, there's some skill and there's some nuance to this. Then yeah. So I feel like that was a really important development for me to learn like what that looks like, what that's supposed to be like how that's supposed to be structured to discover some things that I really appreciated, like really enjoyed and honestly like kind of miss, but to also learn like the things of like, okay, maybe this was not as well appreciated. Like this is not, maybe the next time around we're going to try to avoid that. So in this hypothetical scenario, in which I know what's going to happen going into it, I would change two things. I would change the end date of the relationship and I would change my viewpoint on the relationship. Like I would change my mental approach to it. By change the end date, I mean push it up a little bit. I feel like in terms of that, like we had a really great moment where if I'd known like this was going to come to an end, like would have been like the beautiful storybook ending that probably would have been like around prom that time, which I know you're sitting here and you're thinking like, wow, you're going to do that like right after prom. But it's like at that point, so I graduated a semester early. So I was already working all the time and like getting around the scheduling and whatnot it was becoming really, really difficult. I was at like this major like crossroads point in my life. Like this is right around the time where I was making all these changes and starting to take action to do things like this and whatnot. And I think that would have been like the perfect like storybook. We had our great highlight moment. Now let's both appreciate what happened and just go on our separate ways. Cause that's when looking back at it, like the things that led to the end of it Like, that's when that sort of came around, at least in my head. And obviously, I'm not speaking for her, I have no idea. But, like, some of the things that were, like I said, the reason why it came to an end, like, that's when it really started to happen. So then at the very least, we both get our nice, like, you get the senior prom with that, and then you get this nice moment, and then as you just move on. I also would have changed just how, like, committed I don't wanna say, like, how committed I was, because that sounds like I should not have really, like, tried to just do but, like, I would change how important that's a better way to put it. I would change how important it was to me, because it started off I will say this is a mental thing that I had for me going in that broke down, and it should not have. It started off with having her like having that relationship just being like this nice extra additive thing to my life. As in my opinion, any teenage high school relationship should. It should be purely adding to your life. Should not be taking anything away because you're not really at a point in your life to where like sacrificing something for another person, like truly giving up real significant things for someone else actually makes sense and is the wise, like good, well thought out choice. So I think like I definitely was, I made it the basis of like my life. I thought honestly, but I don't know whether or not this was ever like true for her, but me and her, we both like, we talked about getting married and everything. Like it was like, I was fully like, I was like, this is my woman. I'm just, we're just waiting for the day in which it comes along and we can actually do the thing. So I definitely would go back and I would make it so that it's not like this extremely important foundational element to how I think about life sort of thing. Cause that was truly like the really devastating part of it is that the steps that I was taking in life were as a part of that. Like that was the huge piece of it and like the huge motivational factor. And then to just have that go away, all of a sudden, now every piece of my life is being rethought. So going back and making it so that I'm not fully structuring my life around that would be the wise decision. And it also like, but that's another thing where it showed me very quickly that I had never made God the foundation of my life. Like I had accepted God, I had put my faith in him and trust in him and whatnot. But my foundation, my building block for life is never God. Because truly, I didn't want it to be. Like, I'm a stubborn, hard headed individual who's just trying to find some way, somehow, for something to be my way, my method, my, process of doing things. And God came along and said, none of this is not how it gets done. Everything is done through me and based on me. And I will take anything and everything I have to make sure that happens, which is an important lesson and really has like come along and made some very positive impacts and changes on my life. It was just probably the most brutal way to learn it. So like I said, if I had to go back and do it again, I would. Like if I knew, I think it was a great thing. I'm very glad it happened. And it also showed me really the the core issue of my life. This like really central thing that was hindering every aspect of everything in my entire life. And this is truly like if I had to pick one reason, be like, this is why I would go back so I could learn this again. This is why. I will say, I think I talked about it in my like a camp thoughts, camp recap video I did like a month ago. I don't know, sometime in June. I had spent my entire life just not allowing myself to be loved by God or by anyone. I'm so willing to love others, including her, but I've just never like allowed myself to be loved. Like, and looking back on it, I'm like, dang, this is gonna be the weirdest feeling in the entire world to be like in a relationship with someone and you love them so much and they just refuse to accept it. They're just like, nope, which I will sit down and I will explain why that is the case another day. Very distant day. Unfortunately, I have some parameters preventing me. But yeah, that is, and I was really nasty towards a lot of people because in my mind, I was like, no one cares. Or why should I be kind or caring or loving to these people? None of them truly care about me at all. None of them truly love me at all, which is also really weird because it was like there was a set like group of people and then I was like, okay, they're all right. I remember actually distinctly saying to her, I remember this conversation very vividly because it was the first time this idea had really been like introduced in my head. I was like, so I know all of my like friends, all of the people that I hang out with and I spend my time with on a, you know, regular basis. I know them all through church. And I remember telling her, I was like, I think if I switched churches, like I would never see or hear from any of them ever again. And she's like, I think you're right. And I think it would be your fault. I was like, just looking back, she's completely correct. I have such a tendency. I remember graduating the second I graduated high school, I went on Snapchat and like Instagram and all of the kids I knew from high school. I went in, I removed them, and I'm so willing to just toss people aside and cut ties and just forget about people entirely. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, no one truly cares. Like, none of these people really care. Me being a part of their lives or not being a part of their lives makes no impact on them. It doesn't matter. So if I walk away and they never it's not going to change anything. I'm 100% confident that if I just stopped like hanging out with my friends, they would reach out and they'd be like, hey man, what are you up to? Like, we want to da 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 da, whatnot. And I'm 100% confident that at that moment in my life, if that's what had happened, I would have said no. I would have unadded them on Snapchat, unfollowed them, deleted the numbers, like just forgotten about it. Cause that was the tendency of my life of just like, nobody really cares. So let's just forget about it. Just forget about these people. Which, like I said, must have been this really weird situation for her where you have this guy who you truly deeply care, about a lot. And clearly, like, he cares about you and whatnot. And like, there's this whole thing, but also like, he's just so willing he's so cold and like calloused about everyone else in his life. Like I cannot imagine how weird it must have been for her seeing me be so like caring and loving and kind and like open hearted and whatnot with her. And then seeing the way I interacted with everyone else being so mean and rude and just cold and calloused, like wanting nothing to do with people. Like, I cannot imagine how weird that must have been. Because I will say, I've like truly never loved anything quite as much, other than like the Lord Himself, as I loved her. It's just a fact. Anything or anyone. And there was such a large contrast between how I treated her and how I treated everyone else that it's just so, even now looking back at it, I'm like, man, that is really weird to think about. It's incredibly weird to think about. And that's how I treated everyone, friends, family, like every single person I talked to. And it came down to I believed and trusted. I didn't accept, I didn't receive the care, I didn't receive the love, but I knew it was there. And with everyone else, I was just lying. I was like, nah, it's just all a scam. And I just like I said, I can't imagine like for her how weird that must have been. Like, because she was very much the same. Like, she was very kind and caring and open-hearted to everyone. So when she was like that with me, it's like it was nothing new. Like, when she was like that with others, like it was nothing. It just all made sense and it all like flowed along. But it's like, yeah, very grateful to have learned that lesson. And I'm very grateful to have the Lord as the foundation of my life. I'm very grateful to be able to look back. I'm still kind of like, there's some people that it's like, I'm still a little, I got to get better a little bit, but it's significantly improved. The other thing that came out of this relationship I had that like truly was an important lesson that I'm very grateful that I learned was the art, like the lesson of forgiveness. Up until probably, like I said, about like a month ago, I was not a forgiving person at all. Not only was I not a forgiving person, I was a very vengeful person. Like anyone and everyone who had ever done me wrong in my life, I was just waiting for the day, waiting for the moment, waiting for the opportunity to like get them back. And because God knows me and he knows my heart and he knows what would have happened in the sheer amount of destruction to not only their life but my life, you know, the lives of those the other people, but my life it would have done. Those opportunities never came, and it like really started to eat away at me. Like this also played into me being like cold and bitter and like rude and nasty towards people because I had just so much anger and hatred that had just built up in my heart, and I was like holding on to it, just waiting for the day, waiting for the chance to just find someone and just get a real opportunity to just let it all go on them right in that moment. And I had told her about this and she's like, this is a problem. I remember her telling me like, you, the Lord is the judge. You're not the judge. You're not here to serve the justice. Like this is, let it go. And I was like, I do not want to. And then finally, I remember I was at church camp and I was having a conversation with one of my buddies and he's like, dude, you gotta like just give it to God. It's like just be done. It's like this is clearly having this anger in your heart has done more damage than these people have ever done. Just let it go. And I remember in the moment I was like, no, I'm gonna get my chance. And then finally I was like, after, go back to the dorm because we were at a college campus, so I was in a dorm at night, and I was like, yeah, he's like, I gotta get rid of this. I can't do it. I've lived my entire life, 10, probably since I was about 10. Like there are things that happened like 8 years ago, still held on in there, still mad about it. I wasn't actually mad about it, but like the anger had like built up. It's not like I was mad about that specific situation, but the anger was still sitting. You know what I mean? You get the point. And man, I was like, all right. So I went to God and I prayed and I said, Lord, lift this, like, take this away from me. Like, I'm done. This has been the anchor of my life. Like, that was truly what the Lord of my life was for 8 years. I was like, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. And I remember physically feeling lighter, like genuinely feeling lighter. Like, I feel like I'd lost like a solid 10 pounds, 10 or 20, And I was like, and it was like this incredible moment. And I was finally able to just look at all the people who had done me wrong and just look at them for who they were and not what they had done. I remember still to this day, I'm a big believer in the old saying, actions speak louder than words. I'm still a big believer, but to have the ability, even for a brief moment, to be able to see people as God sees them and not as the world has corrupted them to be, even just for a few days, is an experience I wish I could get back. And like I said, I'm still not perfect with it. I'm a little mean and I'm a big fan of like joking around with people and whatnot. It's probably not great. And I probably still don't give people enough love and like give them their flowers enough. But like I said, to just even for a moment, even for just a few days while I was at church camp, to just truly see people with the loving heart of God. Like I said, it's probably not as strong as it was in that moment because it's not as like centralized and you're at church camp and everything. And there's like the problems of the world are distant and it's just Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all day, every day. And like that's something I will be forever grateful for. And I don't know without, like I said, the whole relationship, the whole thing, I would have gotten there. Like I don't know that I would have ever gotten to that point. Maybe, probably not, or would have taken so much longer that my whole life would have just been destroyed by the time it finally happened. Like I could have been like a 32-year-old man just living alone, sad and like rotting away because I finally got to the point to where I was able to, like I said, let the anger go and just truly see people with the Lord's love in my heart and the love of the Holy Spirit. And it's too late. I'm not, for all of you who are like 32 out there, I'm not saying it's like too late. But I'm saying like so many things, so many incredible opportunities I just missed out on, so many people that are just gone that shouldn't be and don't need to be, so many bridges burned, so many connections broken. which was already a thing that, like, was starting to happen. Like, it was already a process. Like I said, you could see it at Texas Roadhouse where, like, my angry spirit and my vengeful heart and whatnot, like, burned bridges and it broke connections and it ruined things. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know. I could not wake up tomorrow and just be with the Lord for the rest of eternity, but presuming that I have been given the ability to live a lot longer. I'm grateful that that change of heart happened when it did, so that I now get to live pretty much the majority of my life, hopefully, with this new sort of thought process, a new way of approaching life and approaching people in my the past few like the past month or so going through life with the love of the Holy Spirit in my heart and being able, like I said, to interact with people and like see people in that way has been truly transformative. Truly. Like I said, still not perfect. It's still like it's not, but I don't really hold things against people as much anymore, forgive and forget. And to have that ability has been incredible, like phenomenal. This video is going to be an hour long. Sorry, people. I will say, this is the one final thing that I truly gained out of that whole situation that I makes it all worth it. I finally learned how to love me and to look at myself through that Holy Spirit guided God's love lens. And I feel horrible for the people who can't. Like, I never understood for a while when people were talking about self-love, like you have to love yourself and whatnot. I was like, man, like that's not important. Like, what are you talking about? Who cares? It's not about you. Forget about it. Like, I remember one time literally saying, I was like, my life is not about me. I'm a side character in my own life. I'm here to support other people, to be there for other people, and to like be around other people. And I'm just, you know, it's just like it's not about me at all. Who cares about me? Which being selfless and wanting to be supportive and like help people and whatnot is not an inherently bad thing. But doing it, wanting to be there for others because you can't be there for yourself and you can't even think about yourself is not the right approach. I remember like feeling convicted and being upset of like, man, these are the ways I've thought. These are the things that I've said. Like, this is how I felt about God's creation, referring to myself. Like, I remember like apologizing to God and being like, man, I'm sorry. Like, I would have ever said these things, thought these things, and felt this way about your son. Like, I'm sorry. It's horrible. And that's something that, like, man, I'm hoping that all of those never go away. But that's the one, if I had to pick one, I'm hoping that that doesn't go away because I feel like there's so many things that you can do with that. Like I said, I used to be the person seeing all the TikToks and whatnot about you have to learn to love yourself before you can love others and blah 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 blah. And I was like, get it, like who cares? Shut up, get out of my face. And I didn't. But now I get it. I'm like, man, you just like there's a lot of non-Christian people who are making God's point for him. It actually comes back to the like truly taught me the lesson of what it means when it says love thy neighbor as thyself. I love your neighbor as yourself. Sorry if we're going with the less King James, more modern translation. Like a lot of people hear that and they interpret it in the form of selfishness and like don't be selfish and put yourself above others and la da 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 da. But truly, it's not even like a command of telling you what to do. It's telling you what you're going to do. Like if you're a true follower of Christ, you will love your neighbor as yourself, no matter how you view yourself. Like, no matter what your thoughts and feelings and opinions about you are, they will reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and opinions of others, whether it's positive or negative. And like I said, that's the core thing that was spiraling everything else, which is why I was so hateful and bitter and angry towards people, because it was really all about me. I was loving people as much as I loved myself, which was not a whole lot at all. Like I said, with only one exception. And for those lessons right there, I'm eternally grateful and would 100%, 100%. Because those, like I said, my entire way of thinking about life is completely different because of it. I mean, praise God, man. So yeah, I want to speak to all of you out there, to challenge all of you to really sit down and ask yourself this question. Think about it in many different contexts, as many contexts as you can apply it to. Of if you knew how it would end, would you have ever done it in the first place? If you could go back in time knowing how it ends, would you have ever done it? Because I think there's some incredible lessons to learn there. And it teaches you to be grateful for suffering. So many people view suffering as this horrible thing. It's like terrible thing. Man, how dare I have to suffer? But what you learn through suffering and through being beaten down and being broken is more valuable than anything you could ever learn any other way. So be grateful for the pain that you have endured, because the lessons it has taught you, at least for me, are well worth it. And on that note, let's pray and wrap up. Dear God, I want to thank you for giving me and all the others the opportunity to suffer, Lord. Giving us the chance to be broken down and to learn, God. Pray for all those out there who are in the middle of their suffering right now, Lord, that they would understand what they need to understand. They would learn the lessons you are trying to teach them, and they would be grateful to have had the opportunity to learn. God, I pray for those out there who look back on their suffering and on their moments of pain with nothing but resentment and regret. I pray that they would be able to take a deeper, harder look through the lens of you, Lord, and through the lens of the Holy Spirit, and truly examine exactly what happened and why it happened. And I pray that they may learn what you're trying to teach them, so they don't repeat their actions again, God, and suffer more needlessly. And in your name I pray, God. Amen. Thank you all for your time.